Okay, there we go. Sorry, there was one of the cameras I just forgot to turn off. This is the problem being independent. Well.
As I said, thank you so much for doing this. I'm really excited for this conversation. I'm just going to start with an open-ended question. How did music happen to you? Usually musicians have really interesting stories.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. This is my first interview podcast sort of thing in like, I think 3 years. So it's nice to be back into it. It's getting the ball rolling again, so I appreciate it. As far as your question, it's one of those things where like, I was always a fan of music since I was like 13, honestly, as a kid. Before that, I didn't really have any like passions. I wasn't really into sports or like video games or things kids are usually into. When I discovered music, I was just like, something just clicked and I was like, this is it. So it caught me at that time, and I didn't really get into composition or anything until I was like 18 and went to college and everything. But the music bug bit me really early, and I was a fan for a very long time before then.
And so very early on, usually, I know that a lot of musicians in the Indian American community, at least, they start off learning Indian classical as a kid, or
Yeah.
so some of them learn Western classical like piano or violin, or one of these really sort of theoretically dense
Right.
um, traditions. What was it like for you? How was the first expressions of your passion for music?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I didn't really get into the more traditional stuff at all. I learned guitar first when I was like maybe 14 or 15 or 16, but it was all self-taught. It was through like YouTube videos and just through experimentation, watching my favorite artists. So I never took the traditional route really. I think I tried taking a little bit of piano lessons for like a couple weeks and it didn't really work. So I didn't stay in that too long. But I was always more of a like, I never liked formal education in general, but especially for music, because I felt like it took away the creativity from it and made it like you're gonna sound like your teacher does. You know what I mean? So I never really, I never did the traditional education for music, at least.
What would you say was your first breakthrough when you said that, all right, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
This is a good question. You sure you want the story?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want the long form version.
Absolutely, man. That's what I'm here for. Okay, so like I said, never been a huge fan of education, never been a huge fan of like the system that we're kind of all into. I'm sure as a journalist you understand that. Just like going to school, going to college, going the 9 to 5 route, it drove me out of my mind, honestly. Like by the time I was 15 or 16, I already kind of had a problem with authority, and I was like rebelling in class, not going to class and stuff like that. And college was a little bit better because there was more freedom. I could kind of do what I want. But by the time I got my first job right outside of college, like literally 2 months into the job, I just had almost like a meltdown. I was just so pissed off. I'm like, this is what I've been working towards. I can't stand this. And I like, it's kind of embarrassing, but I called my mom during my lunch break and just ranted for like an hour. I'm like, I can't do this. Get me out of here. And obviously I didn't get out right at that moment, but that's kind of when like I drew a line in the sand and like, I can't do this for real. Like I've been in and out of day jobs kind of since then, and not for a couple of years, but since then, just when I needed money. But it's a different mentality now because I know I'm doing it just as a day job just to make money, but I'm really truly a musician. So this happened probably about 10 years ago to the day now. Yeah, that's kind of when the line was drawn. I was like, I can't do this shit.
And just to be clear, you grew up in California, right? Like in the Bay Area?
I grew up in the Bay Area,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
So was that like I don't know, I know that it can be a pressure cooker situation sometimes.
Yes, sir.
Growing up in the Bay Area, and in an Indian American community, everyone's sort of super accomplished. You usually, a lot of Indians from the tech world live in the Bay Area, and
Yep.
they're really successful. Natural that they want their kids to be really successful in the conventional ways as well.
Yeah.
So how did you sort of reconcile all of those things?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, man, because that was definitely a big factor that I don't think I realized for a while. Because it was almost less of the Indian community and more of just my peers. Like I grew up in Palo Alto, and it definitely was a huge pressure cooker type of environment. I always kind of felt like an underdog, or like I got something to prove, because I never liked school. I never did well in school. Never really tried. Just couldn't bring myself to do it. Like it was almost like it sounds kind of crazy to say for like a high schooler to think this way, but I didn't like the like employee mindset. You know what I mean? I wanted to have freedom and kind of just be my own boss and do my own thing. And like, I didn't believe these rules of society that like, you know, you have to go to school, go to college, and get a good job to be successful. It felt very limiting. And so that was actually one of the main like things. Like, I knew that I didn't want to do this path, but I still wanted to be like successful and everything and happy and everything. So it was a big part. I'm not sure if I answered your question properly, but it was a big part of like the mentality of like, I got to get out of this, because it was so forced on me and so much like an expectation that I couldn't do it.
I'm guessing it must have been difficult to sort of break away from that and chart this sort of, some would say, riskier
Right,
territory,
sure.
a less certain territory.
It was definitely, I mean, that's one of the reasons I didn't do it earlier, I feel like, because the pressure, the path was there, the expectation was there to just school, college, whatever. And, you know, it works for most people, and that's great. But for creatives like me, and like I assume you as well as a journalist, it's just something that doesn't like, it's just not you, and you can't force yourself or you're going to go crazy. That's kind of what I experienced, so I had to get out.
Right. So what did getting out entail? What was the transition like?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is finances are a part of it. So I couldn't exactly get out for a while. I was working in a company here in Los Angeles at the time, and I finished, or I guess it was like an internship that became a full-time job. So I left that in about 4 or 5-ish months, moved back home to the Bay Area, lived with my parents, and I needed another job at that point. I couldn't just do music full-time at that point. Didn't know what I was doing. Couldn't just jump in. So I did get a full-time job again. But again, my mentality was that it's just a source of income as I build my music career. Did that again. Couldn't last more than like 4 months. I was planning to last a lot longer and just do it during the day and then work at night on my music. But I was like, this is driving me crazy. I can't do it. And so I did that for about 4 months. I had enough saved up where I could kind of survive for like 2 years. If I was living with my parents, like not on my own, and did that. It's kind of funny how timing worked out, because after those 2 years, I'd started releasing songs and everything, but it was at the point where I feel like I'd plateaued in the Bay Area, and there wasn't. Looking back, this sounds ridiculous because I know it's not true, but it felt like I couldn't do much more in the Bay Area. I needed to move to LA, be around other musicians, other creatives, and just be in the right environment, be on my own. So after those 2 years, timing-wise, I actually just happened to move over here back to LA, and I live in West LA. I've lived there since then, and again, been in and out of day jobs a little bit. But as of the last couple years, I'd say I've been basically doing this full time and have some other sources of income as well. But I'm finally free from the system for now.
Right, and now that you're in it, I'm sort of curious about what your everyday life is like. I just to. So like a disclaimer, I often interview musicians, and most times the answer that I get is almost very anticlimactic. They're like, yeah, I mean, when I tour, I play in 15 cities in 20 days, just like nonchalantly. But when I'm at home, it's mostly just, getting groceries and dropping kids off to work, picking them up from school, and doing some gardening, and that's about it. So I'm pretty curious to, as someone who actively plays shows, is composing, is working on new stuff every day. What's your day-to-day life like?
Yeah, so it's a little different every day, and I'll preface this by saying, like, me as an artist is a little different than maybe some of the other people you talk to, because I do less shows and spend more time in the studio making songs. Like, my business model is release a lot of songs, have a big catalog, and I've only done 3 shows since COVID ended. So before that I was doing shows maybe once a month, sometimes more than that, maybe less, but I was doing a lot more shows. So to preface it with that, I spend most of my time here in this room in the studio, trying to make songs, trying to get better, practicing my vocals, my beats, just making songs as much as I can. I'd say, like, as a daily routine, I try to just stay healthy and stay active. So I go to the gym all the time, I cook my food, eat well. But as far as work goes, I'm pretty much just in here making music, and I also make little, like, vertical video TikTok style stuff, but I will admit I got to get better at those. I don't do it that much because I don't really like it, to be honest. It's just part of the job. But But yeah, that's kind of the day to day. I spend most of the time in here making music. I do little like little drills where I practice vocal warm ups, vocal exercises, make little beats. I haven't actually done this in a while, but I used to try to make one song every single day, and I'd say for the last 2 years I haven't done that. And those songs are not like fully fledged songs ready to release. It's just kind of like for practice and to keep myself loose. But again, I haven't done that, but I'm trying to get back into that actually this summer.
That output sounds crazy to me, like one song a day.
Yeah.
It sounds like an insane amount of work. But also, I kind of want to ask you about, are you entirely a self-taught musician?
Yeah, 100%.
So, and you do vocals, you do guitar, you said piano. Are there any that you missed out?
Right. So I do basically like, okay, so there was like about 20 songs in my catalog where I've done everything start to finish, like from making the beat, writing the song, performing the vocals, singing, rapping, mixing, mastering, everything. So that's, I mean, I can do everything, but I'm primarily a vocalist. And even as a beat maker, I don't really like starting beats necessarily, but like right now what I do is I get beats from a beat maker and then I produce them myself. So I'll show you when we break down the song, but like I'll basically like reproduce the beat using my own production methods. But yeah, I can do it all and I do it all, but I'm primarily a vocalist. For the songs I release, I try to just stick to vocals, let the experts handle their things. I have a mix engineer too who handles this part. But for the ones where I was doing one song a day, I was doing everything myself. But those were, again, like I said, more for practice, less for release.
Right. And when you're starting out in electronic music, do you have did you have an idea of what you wanted your sound to sound like? Do you have any inspirations in mind? Do you have any sort of ideas, broad idea?
That's a great question, man, because I've never thought about this, but I think I definitely did, because I always wanted to make like deeper personal music. I never really was interested in making like party music or like just like fun background kind of music. All of my songs have like lyrical messages, stories, etc. And as far as sonically, I would say it was all kind of subconscious. Like I had an idea of artists I kind of wanted to sound like, but it was never like an intentional sort of like I'm gonna make this song like this artist. I try to just let it. Actually, these days, like in the beginning, I would think more, and these days I try to just turn the brain off and let it just flow like from the soul, So it all comes out there, but it's never like a conscious decision anymore. And there's a couple exceptions here and there, but for the most part, like sometimes I'll feel like I want to write like a love song or I want to write about this, but for the most part I just have a beat or make a beat and then just whatever comes out comes out.
Right. And were there any artists that you've always looked up to and that you specifically admire for whatever reasons?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually I have a top 3 that I tell everybody. So my top 3 are Linkin Park, Dr. Dre, and Russ. So those 3 have been consistently inspiring and motivating me since the beginning, and in the case of Linkin Park, before the beginning, like for almost 20 years at this point. But yeah, all 3 of those have been consistently kind of like, there's something that just I relate to about their music and their personality and their approach to business, like the whole spectrum between arts and commerce. They kind of sit right at a part where I love, and I kind of see myself in that same part. Specifically, what I admire about them is, like I said, they sit right between the arts versus commerce spectrum. They, I pride myself in not trying to make music that's super commercial and super just like made for an audience. I want it to be real and authentic, but at the same time, I don't want to make like some drugged out, like crazy, just nonsense music that doesn't make any sense. I want it to be digestible at the same time. And that's not because of like, again, not a conscious decision, just kind of what I like. That's kind of what I want to make. So yeah, all 3 of them do that. All 3 of them have integrity. And I just like art that feels real, doesn't feel like it was made to sell, doesn't feel like it was made for a certain audience. And that's kind of the short answer of why I like them all. Yeah.
And since you mentioned the sort of links between creativity, and not links, but the sort of intersection of creativity and commerce, which is the music industry, I guess.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of times, like earlier on, you sort of joking about the perils of being independent.
Yeah.
And then you're also talking about, you have a really robust social media presence. You sort of share a lot of stuff, like your composition stuff with people who follow you on Instagram and other social media. That seems to be the MO, right, for musicians today. Just put out as much of yourself into the world as possible through
100%.
reels, through TikToks. how would you describe the industry right now? Yeah, I feel like it's come a long way from, oh, have to get a record deal and
100%.
the company will handle everything. What's it like? What are the other considerations that you have to keep in mind simply because of social media?
Yeah, man. So I'm pretty strictly independent. I have no label, no management. I'm not totally opposed to those if the right deal comes, but for the most part, I want to stay independent. I just think that, you know, even with a label, the power that they give you is not something that'll last. It's not a longevity play. Like they'll give you, like they have connections with, you know, Spotify playlists, Apple Music playlists, radio. But the thing is, unless you use those tools to create a proper fan base, you're not going to have longevity in the industry. And what I want, and what every artist should want, is longevity. I'm not here for just a quick summer, make a bunch of money and dip. Like I want to have a long career where I can make music forever.
Right.
For me, I think independence is the way to go. And again, this is for me particularly. Like independence doesn't work for everybody, but I think for me, when you're independent, you have full control over everything. You control your sound, your image, your social media, everything. And you know, there's nothing really that's limiting about independence if you're willing to just do all the work that's required. You know, like I said, I can make a song from front to back by myself. I probably should do more, but I can film social media videos by myself just using my phone, and like I have a GoPro and some other stuff here. See, I think it's really simple right now to be a musician. All you have to do is make a bunch of songs, release them frequently, and make short form video content. And the video content doesn't have to be like, you know, flashy TikTok garbage. It can just be whatever authentically you want to make. And as long as an audience finds it and connects with it, you are kind of set. And I'm really oversimplifying it, but as long as you do that consistently and you work really hard at it and you kind of have that mentality of this is all it takes, I really think that's all it takes. Because for me, like, I'm not like a massive superstar, but I have, like, you know, a little bit of an audience that was made just by those methods. So I know it's possible.
Right.
And then again, I think for most people, independence might not work because you really have to be able to do everything. And I'm not saying that's particularly hard, but it is a lot of work, and people have other responsibilities, other, like, you know, limitations. It's a lot of work, and it's much easier with like a label or a team or management. But I think if you can be independent, that's by far the best. And then to sum it all up, the best part of it is that you don't have to split any of the income. Like when you make the money, it's all yours. So it's just a win-win as long as you're capable and willing to do all the work that's required.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to sort of build on that, can you, again, as I said earlier, sort of pop the hood and walk us through how finances work in the music world? So when a full-time musician wants to make a career in music, what are they looking at as their primary sources of revenue?
So there's many different answers to this. It's a very complicated answer, but I'll speak on just for independent artists because that's kind of what I know. Yeah. I'd say for independent artists, there's basically 3 pillars of income. And like I said, there's many different complicated aspects of each one. But the 3 are basically streaming, touring, and merchandise. So for me, my main income right now is just from streaming. It's from Spotify, Apple. I basically put my music on my distributor's website. My distributor is distrokid.com. They put the songs on every platform. And as they get streamed, I get paid. And the funny thing is, I think I make the majority of my or not the majority, but I make a significant portion of my income from platforms I don't even use, I haven't even heard of, like in different parts of the world, different countries that I've never been to or anything. They have platforms that pay even better than Spotify and Apple. But the thing is, Spotify obviously has the most people, so you make good money off there as well. But yeah, the thing is with independence, like I was saying earlier, my goal is to make a big catalog, like a huge catalog of music, just share all my authentic songs and thoughts at the moment. And the benefit of that when it comes to income is the more songs you have, the more money you make. Just the way it works. Like if I have a fan base of, like, let's say 10,000 people, I'll put out a new song and maybe, you know, let's say 2,000 of them will listen to it right away. What usually happens is they'll listen to that song and also go back to my other 55 songs and play all those songs. So it just kind of compounds over time. And there's a point you get to when you get to like 150, 200 songs where it just goes crazy. I've witnessed this for tons of other artists. So that's the first pillar, streaming. The second that I haven't even really gotten into much is merchandise. So a lot of artists, what they do is, like, let's say I put out a song called Sway at the top of the year. I could have made a bunch of t-shirts, hats, chains, rings, whatever, just certain like merchandise. And if the song does really well, those will also sell because people relate to that song. They want someone to represent that. With that, there's a lot less. You make a lot more money off of each sale. Like with one stream, you get barely anything off of one stream. But with one sale, you'll make a lot more off of merchandise.
Right.
And then the third pillar is shows or touring. So I haven't toured since 2019, but I toured back in 2019. I went to Tucson and I did Vegas and the the Southern California as well. A lot of those shows were free, but most often you can actually get like you have a fee for your own show. So you say, I'll play this venue. This is what I'll sell my tickets for, and you basically make money off of that. So that's another thing I don't have too much experience in. Most of my shows have been either a long time ago or free, but those are the three pillars. Right now, streaming is the main thing, but yeah, those are the three for independence. Those are the three that I kind of see myself doing.
Right, and I'm guessing the streaming income is usually like a percentage of. It's like a fixed amount per stream, and that just gets multiplied and.
Essentially, yeah. It's actually a lot more complicated because each country kind of has a different royalty stream.
Right,
and it's also like once you cross a certain threshold, I believe you get paid more per stream. And they're also changing the terms and everything because they're trying to incentivize like the real artists as opposed to the ones who just put up their music. Like there's a new rule right now where unless you get 1,000 streams, you don't get paid. And a lot of people don't like that, but I think it's great because it incentivizes the real artists to like it helps them kind of stand out from like the cream of the crop almost, you know?
Right.
So yeah, there's a bunch of new rules coming in all the time, but I think right now what they're doing is they're introducing like a tier level where you get paid more per stream once you cross a certain threshold. So yeah, it gets complicated, but essentially what you said is kind of the foundation of it.
Yeah, but that was super insightful. Just you sort of breaking it down into different pillars. I think that's super helpful for anyone who's wanting to start out in this industry.
Awesome.
Just like the film industry, is the entire industry in LA? So would you say that you at some point have to move to LA, or maybe I think New York is another big center, I guess. Is it necessary to move to these places to sort of make it big?
Not at all. Honestly, that's what I was saying earlier about when I said I felt like I plateaued in the Bay. That sounds ridiculous now because now I know that it's all run off of TikTok and Instagram. So yeah, not at all. That's the short answer.
Yeah.
I think especially for me as an independent, it makes no difference whatsoever. I think maybe, and again, I don't know too much about this personally, but if you want to go the mainstream route and get signed and do like the A-list celebrity thing, then yeah, probably. But for most artists who want to make good money and just make a living, then not at all.
Right. And this is a more recent phenomenon, just the shift from to social media, I would say, in the music industry?
Yeah, I mean, as recent as the shift to social media. So maybe in the last 10, 15 years.
Okay.
So it feels it's not even that recent, but yeah, in the long term, it is pretty recent.
Before I forget, could you talk about the name, why Memento?
Yes, sir. It's one of my favorite questions. I'm glad you asked. Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons behind that. So first of all, I wanted a name that when you hear it, it sounds a little bit ambiguous. Like when you hear Memento, you might think it's a rock band. You might think it's a solo artist. I didn't want something that sounds like this is automatically like it's going to be a rapper. And I don't see myself as just a rapper at all. Like I see myself as an artist, a singer, rapper, producer, whatever else. So I wanted a name that represents that. And second of all, I just wanted something that sounds silly, but I want something that sounds cool. It sounds kind of badass. Like when you hear Memento, it's like, oh shit, Memento's playing the arena. You know, it just sounds cool. And third, and this is like the real like deep reason, I wanted a name that represents kind of how I see music and my love for music. So, you know, when I hear certain songs, they represent certain times in my life. And I'm sure, you know, music fans like yourself and everyone else will agree. When you hear a certain song, it'll take you back to the moment where you first heard it or when you first were into it and listening to it. So, like, I'll hear, you know, my favorite, like, Linkin Park song. It'll take me back to 2005. I'll hear my favorite Dr. Dre song back to 2011. So those are mementos of those times, and I want to basically create mementos in my catalog. So I want to make those songs for my listeners and other kids who listen to my music to have those memories associated with my songs.
Right. Yeah, I think that as you're talking about it, I was just thinking that that's a big sort of, that's something I look forward to when I listen to music.
Right.
It's a different playlist that transport me to different times in my life or different I don't know, different moods often.
100%.
And it's a good name.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's funny because I've had a couple friends who do music as well, and a lot of them go through like name changes and artists like rebranding and stuff. And I've also rebranded myself, but I'm really glad that I chose that name Memento because I have no desire to change it at all. Like it just stuck. It works for whatever kind of music I make. It just works. So appreciate that.
That's great. And at this point, I feel like even if you wanted to, it's a risk to change it, right? Because
Exactly.
so many people associate you with that name.
And that's the thing, because there's a lot of other artists with that name, and that always annoys me, but it is what it is. Like, people look it up, they're like, which one is you again? It's just, that's kind of annoying.
Before we move on to the demo, I wanted to quickly ask you what's next on your horizon?
Yeah, man, that's a great question and good timing, because I'm at a point where I'm going to kind of go back to an older mentality of mine. So let me this is kind of a long answer. Let me preface this. So the last 2 years, I was actually pretty slow about my music output, slower than I would like for sure. I don't know. It was a combination of maybe a little bit of burnout and a little bit of just the societal pressures of like, you know, making more money, being more stable, whatever else. So for the last 2 years, I haven't put out that many songs. I've barely been on social media. I've done maybe 2 or 3 shows, and something happened like 2 weeks ago where I was looking into getting a day job again, kind of interviewing around, and I had a really bad experience in a job interview, and something just like snapped in my head, and I'm like, what? Can I cuss? Is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I wasting my time with these like jobs? This is not me. It's driving me crazy, and it just drove me out of my fucking mind. So in that moment, something just snapped, and I was like, you know what? Like, I need to stop fucking around and just go hard with my music like I used to, and stop being so comfortable and just go for it again. So this happened literally 2 weeks ago. So since that moment, I've already completed a new song, recorded it yesterday, and what's next for the next 6 months to a year is just I'm gonna make a ton of new songs. Release a shitload of videos. As far as shows, I'm not really sure. I'm trying to build the catalog and kind of just get that going and make my fan base a little more engaged like they used to be. Trying to just tap into my mentality I had when I was, 2018 to 2021-ish. So
Right.
that's kind of what's next. It's kind of more of the same, but it's been a little bit of a break, and I'm just like hungry to get back into it. Like, I finished a new song in like 2 weeks. That feels so good. And honestly, man, I feel like myself again. Like, for the last 2 years when I said I was slowing down and trying to look into day jobs, I was kind of just going through the motions. I felt like a zombie. I'm like, oh, I just gotta be a member of society. Fuck that. Like, I woke up and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. So yeah, it's a great timing for your question, because yeah, that's the mentality right now, and that's all I'm trying to do for the next rest of my life, honestly.
Yeah, that's great. Congratulations on that. That already sounds like
Thank you.
A good start.
Yeah. I feel like it's more of a mentality switch than anything, because once you've made up your mind on it and just like you're mentally ready, then it's actually not super hard to do the actual execution, So yeah, appreciate that.
So do you have like a tried and tested way of, okay, for all of my music that I produce, I do A first, then I do B, then I do C, then I do D, or is it, I'm guessing there's some method to the madness.
It's definitely free flowing. There tends to be like there's kind of a method to the madness as far as I'm just kind of in certain habits, So like when I make songs, I'm kind of used to making them a certain way. But then pretty much every single song, I'd say, has something where like something comes up and I want to try something new or just alter my method a little bit. And I'll get into all this when I open the demo. But
Sure.
but yeah, it's usually like I'm like a creature of habit at this point. I've done this for 7 years. I know how to make a song like a certain way, so I'll stick to that. But at the same time, that whole method has evolved over these 7 years. So in the beginning, it was much more logical and less like soulful, almost more logical, less emotional, I'd say. And I would think about every little line I write, think about every little piano or whatever I put in, every drum I put in. And now I just think, if it feels good, then it feels good. And the longer you do that, the more you identify those feelings, like those gut feelings of what actually feels good. So I'm at that point now where I try to think as little as possible, and that helps me actually finish songs faster. They usually are better, and it helps me like avoid burnout.
Right.
So
yeah.
that's kind of how I do it. And I'll tell you this also, like, what I used to do is I'll make the entire instrumental before I even write the vocals. Like, I might have like a rough like idea of what the vocals are, but I'll finish the whole instrumental before I even like write the vocal part. And now I definitely will do the vocals first. So I'll write the melodies and even the raps with like just the basic chord progression on the piano, guitar, whatever.
Okay.
And then I build the song around that. So it's definitely changed.
And now, I think we would just love it if you sort of walked us through how your approach to composition, but in real life, I believe that you're gonna show us a track of yours and
Yes, sir.
deconstruct it and then reconstruct it.
Absolutely.
So take it away.
So this is the file for my song Sway. This is my second most recent release, came out I think February of this year.
Mm-hmm.
The way I'll do it is, so this file that's playing right now, this is the beat that I got from the beat maker. His name is Cali Magic. Shout out to him. He's amazing. I'll go ahead and play a little bit of that and then show you kind of what I did to it.
Sure.
Okay, so that's the beat he gave me. And the first thing I'll do is, so this is just the 2-track, which means that all the instruments are on this one file, but
Right.
the actual beat is actually right here. So it's got drums here, guitar, all these instruments, etc., and vocals.
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll take the main melody, so the main like chord progression. The chord progression, and that's this right here. It's just the guitar thing. So let me play that. So if you notice, it's a little bit lower pitched. So the first thing I'll do is I'll take the main chord progression and I'll just sing, I'll hum, I'll find like a rhythm and a melody over it that I like, that works for my voice and works for the beat, and basically create a demo using just that. And once I have that, I'll move this chord progression. I'll move it up and down and find the right pitch and find the right tempo. So I'll speed it up, slow it down, and find the right vibe for my voice. So yeah, so what I'll do is basically just find what works with my tone and everything. And in this case, this is how I did it. So it's a little bit slower and it's a little bit lower as well. So I'll take the beat he made, and typically what beat makers do, because they're just kind of selling beats, they'll a lot of times have a lot of stuff going on in there, and as a vocalist I kind of want less going on. So I love Cali Magic, he's amazing, but he does put a lot of drums in his beats. So I actually got rid of probably 80% of the drums just to make room for my vocals, keep it, and I like to keep my songs more simple. I want them to be more about like the songwriting and less about like the production. So I get rid of most of the drums, and actually I'd say half the time I'd even get rid of all the drums and create my own drums. But in this case I just happen to use his drums because his pattern was amazing. So the first thing I'll do is remove a bunch of different stuff and just kind of make it as bare bone as possible. So once I have that, then I'll go ahead and sing and rap and create kind of like a skeleton of what I want the melody and the flow to be. So I actually don't have the file of me humming anymore, but I'll show you kind of what it sounds like with the final vocals in there.
Okay.
So this is just this is like the acoustic version of the song, basically. So you'll hear just my vocals and the guitar.
Right. Like the stripped down version.
Sorry?
Like the stripped down version.
Yeah, stripped down version, exactly.
Right.
So here we go.
You can't sit still, you never were home, always running around, tell me what you want it from. My gut telling me, got something to confront, I'll be right by your side, that's something that you want. Did it make you feel powerful when you did what you do? I don't know what you're thinking, but I know the real you. Kinda hard to stay mad at you if I don't deny the truth, and I don't care who hears it, I'm speaking to you. Listen up, cause I can't take it, nothing's changed and nothing's changing. All I want is to see you swaying, sway again. Listen up, cause I can't take it, nothing's changed and nothing's changing. All I want is to feel you swaying, sway as I sing.
So that's, thank you. So that's kind of how like the first demo will sound. So once I have just the basic bare bone version, just guitar and vocals, the song is pretty much done. Like then I gotta write lyrics and make sure the song, like the words sound good, but the actual like, you know, structure and everything is done, and then I just have to produce it. So what that means, I'll add a bunch of elements, and like I said, the beat makers already has his elements, so it's not a very complicated process. But let me just think. What in this case, I started with just this, drums, and there's a couple elements I'll highlight, but let me just show you how it sounds with the drums.
Sure.
Yeah, so with drums, now it's got some rhythm, so it'll sound like this.
I remember every compliment that you gave me. I remember you were nervous, how you'd imitate me. It's in the eyes, you don't let nobody in. But when it's head versus heart, you gotta let the heart win. You like me, I like you, and everybody can tell. But see, that's when I get nervous. Go back in my shell, in my head, tell myself, don't do nothing wrong. Then I fuck everything up, cause the pressure is on. Listen up, cause I can't take it.
Yeah, you get the idea. And then, so there's certain songs where there's like little ideas that hit me that I just, I have to kind of like, I have to just kind of capture and go with. So in this case, like the whole beat was kind of done, and I changed a bunch of stuff and slowed stuff down, got rid of stuff. But there was one little idea I had. So in this hook, you'll hear at the end, I'll sing like a sway again. This part here.
You sway and sway again.
So to me, that part felt like felt almost like the highlight of the song in a way, and I wanted to kind of emphasize that part. So I played this little piano part that made all the difference in my opinion.
You sway and sway again.
Turn that up a little bit.
Yeah, in the back, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I'll turn it up. Play one more time.
Sure.
All I want is to feel you sway and sway as I sing. I remember every...
Yeah, it's kind of quiet. I don't know if you heard that.
No, I totally could. It does sort of like make your vocals almost more robust because it has that ascending line at the back. Yeah.
Exactly. It's the same melody, and it's just being like doubled and emphasized by it.
Yeah.
And because the song is called Sway, that's kind of the catchiest part. I definitely just had that idea and had to just go with it. And in addition to that, actually, so in this song, I had my friend Mr. Max. He's a guitarist. And I wanted him to come in and play. And, just for full disclosure, like I play guitar myself too. And I mean, it's half and half. I'll either have him come in or I'll play guitar myself. But there's certain songs like this where it's only been my ear and my brain on it. And I want somebody else's kind of creativity and somebody else's, like, fresh ears. Right. And, again, it has to be a musician who I trust and who I know is good. So Mr. Max is definitely that. And I wanted kind of his take. I know, like... Or, excuse me, he knows kind of what kind of guitar takes I like and what kind of, like, styles I'm into. So I brought him in and had him play some guitar. And he came up with these little licks right here.
Okay.
Changing. All I want is to feel you sway and sway as I sing.
Yeah, just little stuff in the background. There's a little more over here. I'll show you this.
Listen up, cause I can't fake it. And nothing's changed and nothing's changing. All I want is to see you sway and sway as I sing.
Yeah, so I love that. When he came in, we got that done in like an hour. Right. It was awesome.
Yeah, I like those bends. It's almost like with the keys and your vocals, and it's adding this another bluesy sort of dimension to it.
Exactly. It's a whole different dimension, and I wouldn't have thought to go the bluesy route, which is why I loved that Max came in and handled it.
Right.
Yeah, I would have stuck to this like more poppy kind of chill sort of vibe. So I'm really glad that we got that going. Yeah, and that's kind of it. I mean, there's a bunch of different elements. I'll play the whole thing once we're done talking about it. But I'm trying to think if there's any specific things in this one.
Yeah.
So there's.
So this is Ableton or.
This is Logic Pro.
Logic, okay. And is that the sort of standard that everyone uses?
No, not really. I use it because I used to use Pro Tools, and it got a little bit too complicated, so I just switched to Logic. But, honestly, I'll say that I don't recommend people switch their programs. Like, whatever works, they all kind of work the same. It just depends on how much or how well you know your program. So, yeah, there's no real standard, but just whatever you use, you got to stick to that. And I'm only saying this because I've had a bunch of people ask me what I recommend, and if they're already using something, I'll just say keep sticking to that. But yeah, there's one more thing about the song that I wanted to talk about.
Sure.
Okay, so there was a string part. I'll play that real quick. Turn that up. So this is in the chorus.
Listen up, cause I can't take it. Nothing's changed and nothing's changing. All I want is to see you sway and sway again.
So that's super beautiful. Cali Magic, he made the first part, and then let me see if I can just solo his, or actually, never mind that. He made kind of just this string part here, and I thought it sounded really great. The melody was great, but it sounded a little bit too artificial. So I wanted it to sound more real, like a proper orchestra. So I have another string patch here that is just doubling. Let me actually just drag this over here and I'll play this solo. So I believe this one was his. Yeah, so it's beautiful. But I wanted it to sound more real and more raw, like a proper real people orchestra. And all it took was kind of adding a different layer and making it like more spread apart, making it sound like more people and making it sound more like raw. So this is how it sounds with the other layer. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you make that second one yourself, or was it?
Yeah, so I played that second one. So I had like a patch on my keyboard where I could play the same part, and it just sounded better, and combining them both sounded phenomenal.
Yeah.
And actually, one more thing about that. So in his version, he put the strings in each chorus, and I removed them from the first one because I thought it sounded much more powerful coming in only near the end of the song. So with that said, I'll play a little sample of the full song. And and that's pretty much it. Thanks, man.
This is so exciting.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's almost like on the second string part, it's almost like completely in sync with the first one. There's a few notes that are like harmonized, I guess.
Yeah. So that's one thing I did. I added some harmonies and some chords to make it sound more full. But it was honestly more about the tone. Like the tone of the second one sounded much more, like I said, much more real. But yeah, having the harmonies in there also made it sound like a proper orchestra.
Right.
So I could go through like every layer, but it's kind of more of the same. I'll play the full song now.
Right. Sure.
I'll start with the first chorus and just play a little bit.
I stay mad at you if I don't deny the truth, and I don't care who hears it. I'm speaking to you. Listen up, cause I can't take it. Nothing's changed and nothing's changing. All I want is to see you sway again. Listen up, cause I can't take it.
Sorry?
That was the piano right there.
Yeah, exactly. The piano's talking about right there.
Sway again. Listen up, cause I can't take it. Nothing's changed and nothing's changing. All I want is to feel you sway as I sing. I remember every compliment that you gave me.
I'll just show you that last chorus one time with the strings.
Yeah.
I wanna set the time is over. Just sway again. Listen up, cause I can't take it. Nothing's changed and nothing's changing. All I want is to see you sway again. Listen up, cause I can't fake it. Nothing's changed and nothing's changing. All I want is to see you sway as I sing.
Yeah. It all sorts of comes together at the end. It's almost like a crescendo.
Yeah, exactly. That was the idea. Oh, actually, last thing I'll say. So these files here with all the uniform like ending and everything, these are the mixed versions from my engineer. Shout out to Dakota G. He mixed the song. But so this is the bottom. This is the same tracks that I just recorded. So this is the recorded versions without the mixes and stuff on them. But to go through the whole mixing process, they all have a ton of plugins and all sorts of stuff. So just wanted to provide full disclosure there.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much. I think this was so much fun for me, not only as a journalist, but also as someone who really enjoys music and wants to know more about the music industry. I think it's really insightful perspective. And how do people reach you if there's people watching this who want advice?
Yeah, so my social media, my handle is Memento Hip Hop, MEMENTO Hip Hop, and that's the best way to reach me. Send me DMs. I answer all my DMs and everything. It's the same on YouTube, and my Spotify is just Memento. And if it helps, look up Memento Sway, which is the song I just showed you, and it'll show you my page.
Right. Okay. And any other things that I might have missed, but you want to just, if you have anything to say that our readers or viewers in this case.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk for hours, but let me think. Any closing comments? Yeah, man. I mean, my message from the beginning has been the same. It's just like, trust your gut, do what you want to do in this life. Don't waste your one life following the rules of society. I used to say it in a much more aggressive way, which was "fuck the system," but I'm trying to be a grown man and not do that anymore.
Yeah,
but
that was a punk phase.
Kind of, yeah. That was my rebellious punk phase. But yeah, man. In all seriousness, the message is the same. Like, just kind of do what you want, follow your gut, don't listen to the rules of society, and just like, if you have a passion for something, just work your ass off at it and see what happens. That's what I want all the kids who follow me, and just all the people in general who follow me, to listen to. And yeah, I'll be here. I'll be making tons of music this summer, and hopefully that helps inspire people. That's pretty much it.
Cause I can't take it, nothing's changed and nothing's changing. All I want is to see you sway again.